out there? Welcome to the Word Hole Media presentation of Major League A-Holes. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. You are in the hole with Major League A-Holes for episode 152 at MajorLeagueAholes.com and on YouTube at Major League A-Holes. This is an afterglow of a Tigers playoff fucking victory this afternoon. We were recording on a Tuesday night, October 1st. The impossible run of the Tigers continues. And I'm going to try to explain it, but I really don't think there's any earthly way to actually explain what the fuck the Tigers have done over these last 2 months. So it's been a fucking crazy wild ride, and I'm all for it. So it continues. Meanwhile, on the opposite end of the spectrum, we've got to talk about your Chicago White Sox, who made history just as we all thought they might. A little bit different way than we thought they might. They were kind of fighting. They're fighting there at the end. I don't know if that gives you hope for next season, but I guess we'll get into that after your owner made some comments and wrote a letter to you, the fans.
Oh, yeah.
On the other side of Chicago, we have the most expensive mediocre team in existence, the Chicago Cubs, 83 wins and no playoffs once again, just as both you and I predicted. No, I think we predicted they'd win the division.
No, we thought they'd win the division. Yeah.
But I think we both thought they'd have like 83 wins, and that would be enough. And sadly for Jed Hoyer and the Cubs, it was not nearly enough. So
I think we were thinking 88 because we were giving Console like 5 wins.
Okay. Yeah,
obviously, he's better not on a team because then they make the playoffs. So
yeah. Well, your Giants are making headlines all over the place. They've fired their president of baseball operations and replaced him with legend Buster Posey, who I didn't know until about a month ago had any front office experience whatsoever.
He's a negotiator.
That. Yeah. Of course, on the other side of the bay, we've got to talk about the final days of the Oakland A's. And of course, our obligatory asshole of the week, owner John Fisher. That's a sordid tale. It's going to be playing its way out for quite some time. We'll get into that. We've also got aesthetics, as we've got some good news, some bad news, and some good news. Talking about all the uniforms news that has come out in the last couple of days. And then we've got to end the show with a fantasy minute, as I'm sure no one cares about except for you deeply, as we do. Had an epic battle to the very last moment. Till Sunday afternoon. Got to tell the story. If not, you and I have not really spoken about this. This is our first time.
Yes.
Speaking of the epic race, and we'll get our thoughts out there. And it was fun. This is why I love baseball. I love fantasy baseball. That was fun. That, ladies, was fun. So with that, I think we might as well go ahead and jump into the news. My Tigers win again. They have won game 1 of the AL wild card against the Houston Astros. How they keep doing this is unbelievable. How they even got to this point is unbelievable. They have been the best team in baseball for the past 2 months, essentially. They won more games in the second half of the season than anyone. Followed in second place with 38 wins, I believe, was these Houston Astros. The Tigers had 39 wins. The key to all this was a stretch where they went 31-11 since August 11th.
Yeah.
Where 31-11 kind of sounds a little bit, not quite, but a little bit like 35-5 that the 1984 Tigers were so famous for. Their start that was just insurmountable. That led to their 104 win season and eventual World Series championship against the San Diego Padres, which they happen to be in the playoffs this year as well. So might be a little bit of a harbinger. The Tigers, I mean, everyone's trying to explain how they keep doing this. After the trade deadline, we haven't done that many episodes in the second half, but we've discussed things here and there. Of course, they traded away Jack Flaherty. The other 2/5 of the rotation was injured, with Casey Mize and Reese Olson going down with injury. They basically have had a 2-man rotation, but that 2-man rotation happens to include the best best pitcher on the planet. I mean, I think it's pretty easy to call Tarik Skubal the the greatest living pitcher at this moment. So that helps. The other thing that helps is you have a manager who absolutely emphasizes every potential advantage he possibly can with matchups on with his relief staff and with his starting lineup and the bench. Basically, there are 26 men on the roster, and all 26 of those guys are going to play almost in every game at this point. It is a masterful use of a limited roster in many ways, a young roster by AJ Hinch, who I think has to win Manager of the Year. I don't know. I don't
I
know how.
agree. I mean, I don't see how you
I,
don't.
I think the front runner, and this is where it gets a little bit complicated, has been, I don't even know who he is, the Royals manager. He's been talked about from day one because no one expected the Royals to do what they're doing.
Ned
So
Yost? No, I'm
that's
just kidding.
no, definitely not Ned Yost. But there's that's going to be an interesting race, and I'm going to be really pissed off if AJ doesn't get it because a huge reason why I believe the Tigers are here is his matchup prowess, his managerial skills have just been impeccable. But at the same time, he's with baseball in general. He got really lucky because every lever he's pulled has worked. Whether it's pinch hitters at the right time, whether it's calling on the bullpen, that has not let him down almost at all in any circumstance. So you have to give the credit to the players as much as I want to give it to AJ. They have none of this works if they don't follow through. He puts them in positions to succeed, which is his job. But they keep uh, just rewarding him for his efforts. So it's been incredible. Basically what the Tigers are doing is bullpen games, and we've seen this over time, where you just kind of throw everybody at a game, but that usually isn't sustainable. You might be able to win a game here or there. Tigers have been doing it for almost 2 months. They really have only had Tarik Skubal and Keter Montero to lean on, as eventually other starters got healthy again, as Reese Olson and Casey Mize came back, but they've been in a very limited role these last maybe 2 weeks. So it's really been two fifths of a real rotation, and then it's just all bullpen games. So I I just I don't know like how this is sustainable, but it is. It has been. It's not. This isn't like a 2 week span. This is almost a 2 month span. So how these guys aren't running out of gas is beyond me. And I would say it's got to catch up to them at some point. But here we are, one game into the playoffs, and they're in the driver's seat already in this first round, this wild card round. The wild card is, you know, they've had this new wild card round with 3 games, all at the higher seeds home field. They've had this for 2 years, 3 years, and it's something like 80 to 90% of whoever wins game 1 wins the series. And that's where the Tigers find themselves right now. It's also the last 2 years, 100% of road teams have won in the wild card round. So the Tigers are lining up perfectly for that. And essentially the way, just having a 3-game series where you only have to win 2 games, the Tigers are set up perfectly for it. Especially, I thought going into it, I thought they're set up really well with the best pitcher on the planet, Tarik Skubal, and then they just have to win one more game with a bullpen that has been lights out. If you want to get to the nuts and bolts of it, though, what's happening is AJ is turning like leverage on its ear almost, like matchups. If you think about it, most opposing managers set their batting lineup based on the opposing pitcher, whether he's a lefty or righty or whatever their splits are, whatever advantages his lineup might have. But you can't do that with the Tigers. The Tigers just wait for you to put your lineup out there, which you just have. I mean, typically with the Astros, they don't have a varied lineup. It's pretty much the same every day. Who's going to be out there. The AJ can set his pitching rotation to match up with that and to leverage, the first inning of the game, the opener that we've heard of that was invented by Tampa and has been used by Oakland. I think it's been perfected by the Tigers this year, or at least it's been maximized for an inordinate amount of time. AJ can make sure that your best hitters never see the same pitcher twice, which you hear about the OPS or batting average or everything escalates exponentially second and third time through the lineup as pitchers their advantage goes away over time as batters see their different pitches in their arsenal. Well, the way AJ's doing it, you can never see those guys twice. So essentially, anytime there's a matchup advantage, AJ will just go to the pen and have a guy that he can rely on. And basically, being in a playoff race for these last 2 months, like every day they have to win games just to get to where they got to. They're all battle tested, and they've all been in high leverage situations. So AJ has the confidence to go to anybody in the pen at any time and in any matchup that is favorable to him. It got dicey today with Jason Foley essentially shitting the bed in the ninth, but he was bailed out by Bro Brisky, and they just have enough arms to get it done. So while I think this is going to work out in their favor, they're certainly in the driver's seat and in a good position to get one more win against the Astros. I don't. It's going to get more and more difficult as the series get longer. In the second round, of course, it's a 5-game series, and then after that, it's 7 games, and that's where I would assume the Tigers would get exposed. But I assume they were going to get exposed long ago. You and I was actually visiting you 2 weeks ago, just a short 2 weeks ago, there in Chicago for a White Sox Oakland A's game, which was, we should probably talk about that when we get to your Chicago segment. But I told you point blank, I think they were 3 games back of the Twins at the time. I said there's no chance. They had to go they had a series against Baltimore coming up. They had a road series against the Royals, and then they had a road series against Baltimore again coming up.
Right.
It's like, well, they're 3 games behind the Twins at this point, which was really 4 games because they had lost the tiebreaker already. And it's like, with that gauntlet coming up, it's like they've made this fun. They gave us good September baseball, which is all you can ask for out of your ball club. But I knew it was going to end, and I couldn't have been more wrong. They won 4 out of 6 against Baltimore, who I thought was just going to wipe the floor with them. And then they swept the Royals. They went 7-2 in those games and just catapulted themselves in the final week when they took care of the Tampa Bay Rays and then your Chicago White Sox. They only had to win 1 game to make the playoffs, and they did last Friday night. And what a glorious night it was. You didn't go down without a fight, though. Your Garrett Crochet was masterful, but of course he's limited to only 4 innings. But
yeah, kind of like
I guess
it kind of went like we thought opening day was going to go.
yeah, exactly. That's ironic. I didn't even think about that. Well, before we get to your White Sox, though, I do want to nominate an impromptu badass of the week, as the aforementioned Tarik Skubal won the American League Triple Crown with 18 wins, 228 strikeouts, and a 2.39 ERA. Both you and I,
my fantasy pitcher.
Yeah, congratulations, your championship fantasy team. Also, as well as my Nostradamus prediction for AL Cy Young Award winner before the season started, Tarik Skubal.
We got one.
Congratulations to us. Yeah. Today, of course, he pitched 6 scoreless in his first playoff appearance, only giving up 4 hits, 1 walk, and had 6 Ks. He was battling a bit of adversity from time to time. He got hit on a comebacker on his glove hand, which has happened a couple times to him this year, which is kind of scary. He was in pain for a while, but he shook it off. I believe in the 6th inning, then he kind of looked like he tweaked his back. And they called out the trainers, and I was really nervous. It was something maybe with his leg, or certainly a back issue is going to be debilitating for quite some time. But he stayed in the game and was still throwing 99, which is unreal. And apparently he was cramping up was the issue, and it's not serious. So I don't know who else we'd give badass of the week to this week. I've got to give it to Tarik Skubal.
No arguments from me. I have no teams playing in the playoffs, so
Yeah, and he was your boy on many levels with your fantasy team and your pick earlier. So
Yeah.
well, I think
It's
with
all
that, I
coming up.
can stop gushing unless you want to talk about how incredible my Tigers are.
I mean, I thought they were going to make the playoffs, and you told me not to get ahead of myself when I said,
Okay.
what day? I guess we'll wait to pick what day we're going to do the podcast this week based on the Tigers' playoff schedule. And you said, whoa, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yes.
And
You're in a position where
luckily,
you can do that. I'm always in a constant position of worrying about jinxing things, so I don't want to get ahead of
I
myself
should
ever.
just start calling you Jinxie.
Because clearly I have that power to control the Tigers' destiny. So I'm that arrogant.
It's because you're part Cub fan. That's where this all comes from.
Yeah, you're right. It's a curse,
Yeah.
so to speak.
All right. Well, I guess it's time to talk about some baseball history on this podcast, and it happened. It was inevitable.
They did it.
They did it. It took longer than a lot of fans wanted. Jerry Reinsdorf got a lot of extra money because of it. The last 3 home games were quite crowded as everyone showed up against the Angels to watch history take place, only for it not to happen until the Sox left town. And Detroit's like, let's just beat these fuckers down and then we can rest some people the next 2 games. And that's exactly what happened.
I saw somebody call it White Sox go maximum White Sox by
Yeah.
getting booed for winning games at home.
Well, the first night was hilarious because in the 8th, the Angels take a 2-0 lead. And this is prescriptive. 100 times before that, the Sox bullpen is blowing a lead or a tie in the 7th inning or later. And the Sox were 0 for 100. 0 for 100 going into that moment. Part of how the Sox did it was in pure Sox fashion. This wasn't even in my head, but it's totally worth talking about. There is a pop-up in the infield and the ball lands between 3 players and a run scores. And the Angels take a 2-0 lead. The next inning, in the bottom of the 8th, the Sox score a run. They are now down 2-1. Lewis Robert hits what looks to be a routine fly ball just over the second base position into the outfield. That falls. That does not get caught. The second baseman moved back on it and misjudged it. And the game is tied. The Sox take a lead 3-2 and they win. The funny part about it is when the Angels took the 2-0 lead, everyone was applauding. Then when the Sox took the lead 3-2, people were applauding again, but it was almost like, I guess. And the Sox go on to win that one. And then they just kind of took care of business the next 2 days. It was Andrew Benintendi pretty much winning the games the next 3 days, like all 3 of those games, refusing to give in to the 121. Did the Sox end on a positive note? In a very strange way, yes, winning 5 out of 6. I don't really count the 2 wins against the Tigers because the Tigers were obviously getting guys in position to.
Well, Saturday, the Tigers were 100% hungover and not interested in playing baseball.
Well,
I don't know if you saw much footage.
Game technique, but yeah.
Well, fortunately, the Tigers were celebrating after having clinched the playoff berth.
Yeah, that's true. Not in the middle of the season.
Yeah, the footage on Friday night after they clinched was epic. Much beer and champagne everywhere, as you'd expect, but it was especially joyful for such a team that had no idea they were going to be able to do this, and they're all fucking rookies. Sorry, I switched this to a Tigers discussion already,
no. I mean, they obviously they share the universe together, and there's been a lot of great battles. Some of the best non-tickle fights in baseball history are between the Tigers and the White Sox. So
yeah,
there's a storied history there between the 2 teams. But yeah, so I mean, is it cool? I didn't watch. I mean, dude, I watched a couple of the Angels games at moments because of the 121 thing, but like Friday night, I'm like, was watching college football, and then I saw
Yeah.
they were down 4-0, and I'm like, well, that's over. So, and the
Well,
Tigers
it
get to go to
was,
the
I mean,
playoffs now. So I
well,
was
it's kind
happy
of
for you.
perfect. Well, thank you. It was kind of perfect for this podcast, just that the Tigers would clinch with that, and it would also clinch the worst record in the history of baseball, modern baseball,
Yeah.
with your 121st loss. So the juxtaposition of those two things is just perfect for this podcast, and I'm sure painful in a way for you, but obviously felt inevitable. So I'm sure you weren't too broken up about it. But
No, it's kind of like, I mean, I hate to say, but it was like just you just kind of knew by
if you're going to be
June.
that bad, why not set the record? I
Well,
mean,
that's what
why
I
not?
had talked about at one point. I'm like, you're not gonna. They were never going anywhere, and then when it got that bad, it's like just own it, right?
Yeah.
Own it. Be the worst team in baseball. Be one of the greatest. Maybe could it be? It could happen. Maybe be one of a great turnaround story or some shit over the next couple years. But that's all left to be seen. But um, one God, I lost my train of thought. You threw that curveball in there, and
Sorry about that.
that's okay. I had something lined up, but I forgot now. But
There's a
I do want to talk about something though that is somewhat surprising, and I just started to look at this for the fuck of it because, like, I'm just like, how really bad were the White Sox? And on all the normal statistics, like they own pretty much the bottom of every offensive category. I mean, they're the only team without double-digit triples, and they have the least
wow.
home runs and the worst OPS and all that shit, right? But there's those other things we all look at throughout the year, whether it's to make us feel better, and obviously I need to make myself feel better. Um, and when you look at the like, I'm sure you're familiar with Baseball Savant through MLB from Google Statcast, and when you look at their their offensive numbers within those statistics, like putting barrels on the ball and launch angle and things like that. One, the Cleveland Guardians, who are in the playoffs, are dead last in every one of those categories. Just the Sox are not.
That's nuts.
Yes,
A 90 win team. Yeah.
Yeah, a 90-win team. Launch angle sweet spot. Your Detroit Tigers were number 6 this year. The White Sox were 20. They were not the worst team for hitting the ball on the right part of the bat and having the correct launch angle to get an extra base hit.
Wow.
Like, that is mind-numbing to me.
Hmm.
And they did score runs. The problem was the bullpen did always let up more runs than whatever they scored.
Right.
They were not scoring.
Inevitable.
Yeah.
If you had a lead going into the 8th or 7th, 8th or 9th, your bullpen was going to shit it away somehow. We talked about that before the season started because you didn't have a bullpen to lean on, and that played out. So
even crazier,
not easy to win games when you can't close them out.
Yeah.
So.
Even crazier, this seems unfathomable to me. They are number 5 in the league in launch angle sweet spot percentage. So they are the 5th best team. The number 1 is the Dodgers. Number 2 is the Padres. 3 was the Twins. 4 was the Rockies. 7 was Orioles.
Rockies.
8 was Tigers.
Okay.
Yeah, 8 was the Tigers.
Wow.
So they were, when they made contact, again, 34.5% of the time was exactly the right part of the bat. I just bring this up that there's other things that are probably a little bit easily fixed through possible acquisitions, even though Chris Getz and Jerry's letter, which we'll get to in just a minute or two, kind of conflict each other. But there's some things that can be fixed through some free agents, which would be the concerning bullpen situation they had. Yet they were still not the worst bullpen in baseball, nor were they the worst starting pitchers in baseball. So that's like all the things that are crazy to me, that it came down to Pedro Grifol. And I hate to just pin this completely on this guy. I don't really hate it, but like, he was just a shitty manager with a shitty coaching staff that did not hold the players accountable. That's it. And it started kind of with the second season of La Russa, and it just continued onward. And it was something that got out of control to the point of this is just obviously my opinion, to this season. Because statistically, in things of like doing things right, they did a decent amount of things right. They just are either a combination of bad luck or like, hit it where they ain't and kept hitting it where they were. And, just really poor managing because their defense continued to be a problem. And,
Well, I
and
think
the bullpen situation. So you put
I
all
think
three of those things together and it's a fucking disaster.
I think overarching all of that is the culture. There's a serious
Yes.
culture issue, and
100%.
I think there's only one person to point to blame for that, and that's owner Jerry Reinsdorf, who had some things to say to you, the fans.
Well, I'm not going to read this whole fucking piece of shit, but I want to read the opening paragraph. To White Sox fans, by all measures, our on-the-field performance this season was a failure. Whoa, newsflash. As the leader of this organization, that is my ultimate responsibility. There are no excuses. All right. So Jerry has been receiving some backlash that he did not take responsibility for anything, but he kind of does there.
He does.
He says it's his responsibility
For what it's worth.
him. Yeah, there's no excuses. After that, it's just a lot of what's a term that's escaping my mind right now?
Bullshit?
Yeah, bullshit. But what's the is it fodder or it's just all noise. It's like like listening to the teacher in Charlie Brown talk. And I gotta read a couple sentences about how Chris Getz has been doing moves immediately within the organization and actually, putting an analytics department together, possibly. I don't know.
That's interesting he brings that up because he has famously said he is against analytics, which is hilarious.
Which is perfect for La Russa.
Yeah.
But
so now they're going to change it all.
Yeah, they're going to change it all now. It took 121 losses. They did, that's what I was going to say before. They did do one thing I didn't think they were even going to make it to. They got over 40 wins. So thank you, Tigers, for making the playoffs and not playing for anything.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I know. You got us to you let us have 41 wins.
41.
41.
Who'd have thunk?
I did not think. I thought we were like topping out at about 37, 38. So
it looked like that for 90% of the season.
Yeah. He goes on to talk about how the minor league system in the low levels is quite healthy, which he's not wrong. The Barons won the Southern League title, and Kannapolis reached the finals of the Carolina League. But those guys are
that's a big change because I've heard like Matt Spiegel bring this up on Hit and Run on Sundays on the Score. For years, for 4 or 5 years, the White Sox minor league teams have been finishing in the bottom of their leagues, which you're not really playing to win those games. Those are clearly development teams. Or wins and losses aren't nearly as impactful or wanted or necessary in those leagues. But it's also telling when all of your organization is at the bottom of all of those leagues. So it's not you can't read too much into that, and you can't read too much into all your teams winning those championships. It's got to help put creating a winning culture. At least if you're winning in the minor leagues, it's got to help. It can't hurt, at least moving to the major leagues. So
it's a positive sign. It's unfortunate it had to be all done through trades because the team that was supposed to be a world champion never even got close. But I just before we leave the White Sox and Jerry, the last paragraph of the letter is one I'm not sure is truthful, and it's maybe the very first sentence here. Above everything else, I'm a fan of baseball, of Chicago, and of the White Sox. I'm going to tell you, you do not run your team like you're a fan of any of those. You are a disgusting owner honestly, the only guy possibly is more disgusting than you is John Fisher, and it's not even he doesn't even have that big of a lead. I mean, you've threatened to leave.
He wrote a letter this
Oh
week as
yeah.
well,
Oh,
so
I read
we'll get
that
to
too.
that.
I read that
Yeah.
too. But like, you've threatened to leave Chicago multiple times, Jerry. You tried to somehow say we needed a new stadium, right near Soldier
Oh,
Field,
yeah.
which,
Remember those conversations?
yeah, like, how about you put a winning team on the field and give someone a reason to show up to the ballpark, and then maybe we'll listen to your stadium proposal. But it's like you are not a fan of this team. You're a fan of money, and you're still making money, and you're launching your new sports network as of today. It launched today, your new sports network.
Oh, that's right.
So you're getting more, yeah,
CHSN.
yeah. So you're getting more money. So how about you do all of us a favor and stop all of this bullshit and just sell the fucking team? All right, sell the team, because I don't think the White Sox are not going to ever win again while you are the owner. And if they do, honestly, I will be shocked. Just fucking shocked.
Well, I don't know if you saw the expose written by The Athletic, Ken Rosenthal, and I forget who the second author was. It came out a couple weeks ago, but kind of exposing the ineptitude and really Jerry's cheapness and the way the organization is completely backwards. The biggest tidbit I got out of it was your team chartered plane is radically different than any other major league franchise's team plane. Is I think I don't know what it is, but it's from, I think it's an Airbus from the mid 80s that you've used all this time that has exactly 8 first class seats. The rest are typical coach seats that you and I would sit in a flight. So you've got your players flying multiple times a week potentially in a very cramped conditions where other major league teams all have first class seats on their charter flights. So that was just one example of in that article I was just unbelievable. Other things they talked about was I feel like there's a lot of anonymous sources on this that they quoted directly, and I really think Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams are 2 of those.
Yeah,
The
I would
deeper you
not be
read it,
surprised.
yeah, the deeper you read into that article, it just feels like this could be coming from nowhere else. And what do those guys have to lose? Like, why wouldn't they talk to The Athletic?
Exactly.
The main thing they talked about, which is kind of getting back to our original conversation, is I don't remember knowing this for sure. I was looking back at some of our videos discussing it when just before Tony La Russa was mysteriously hired out of the blue, but we didn't really know who the White Sox were interviewing. It was kind of a mystery, and I, I'm I guess I can't remember exactly how this played out, but I'm not sure that we knew that they were even going to go after AJ Hinch, which
No,
seemed
we
to make,
didn't. It was speculation, but
well, because it was logical. The White Sox were definitely the best team set up going at that point going forward for any managerial candidate. You had the opening and you had the young roster that looked like it was poised to go on multiple playoff runs. And AJ Hinch became available because of the Astros cheating scandal. And it seemed like a perfect match. And I think both you and I agreed he should be the next White Sox manager. This article confirmed that they had an interview scheduled with AJ Hinch, and that interview was canceled
oh my
by the owner.
god.
And it could have been, just think about the revolving doors of history, the sliding doors of history, however. But if your White Sox had actually gone and done the right thing and hired AJ Hinch versus Tony La Russa, where you would be right now versus where would the Tigers be if you
Yeah,
hadn't
Tony La
let
Russa.
if you hadn't yeah if you hadn't let AJ Hinch fall into our laps. So
You might have had Pedro Grifol.
somehow I doubt it. But
Oh, don't
but
be so
yeah,
sure.
just more things that intertwine for this podcast, specifically this weird podcast we have, like the intertwined history of the Tigers and White Sox, how they're inextricable somehow, and it's brutal. And I'm gloating as again we're in the playoffs and you made history. It's just a brutal juxtaposition.
Well,
Sorry.
I don't have anything else to add right now. So let's go to the other brutal side of town.
Before we do that, we got to talk about. We did go see a White Sox game. I think we should talk about.
I forgot about that.
We did on happier times, even though the White Sox lost that day. You and I had a blast about 2 weeks ago as I came into town on a Friday night for the White Sox versus A's. I haven't seen you in a while. I wanted to come party in Chicago. I haven't been there in a couple months, so it was time to go. And I always love to go see baseball. And you and I kind of had a morbid curiosity what it might be like going to a White Sox game as they did their death march towards history. So we picked a Friday night against the A's. Certainly not a big draw. We didn't think.
We were wrong.
Well, we thought I really wanted to go just so we could have the run of the park. Like we could probably. I thought there it is. The giveaway for that night. What does that say again? La Pantera.
Los White Sox.
What's the second? What's the third?
Ale Brija.
Yeah. It's a painted panther with eagle's wings on it.
Yeah, and the
giveaway. It's fucking awesome.
I have yours.
Yeah, thank you. I need to pick that up someday. But I was thinking we'd go so we could dominate the rate, as we like to call it.
Yeah.
But I thought we could do it literally because there'd only be like 100 other people there, and we could go sit wherever the fuck we wanted and have easy access to all the beer we needed and food and whatever, and just not be fighting lines in the restroom or anything. So
we were wrong.
That was the opposite. Yeah, we were way wrong, and we realized that quickly.
Essentially.
Yeah. It happened to be Hispanic Heritage Weekend and Hispanic Heritage Night at the ballpark. And I don't know if you ever saw a final attendance figure, but I was assuming we'd have about 400 people there. It ended up probably like 25, 30,000.
Yeah, I think it was closer to 30,000, like between 26 and 30,000. I mean,
it was a raucous atmosphere too.
Yeah, we had to spend full price on tickets, folks. That's how bad it was. But that
was the other thing. We assumed we could pay like, pennies on the dollar to get scout seats or wherever we wanted to sit. We end up sitting in the bleachers getting, what was the Bruin?
Yeah, Bleachers and Brews.
Yeah, which was great.
Yeah, we got the 2 beers with the seats, initial cost savings, and then the rest ensued. The plus side of it too, if you remember this, it was one of the fucking fastest games of the year.
Yeah, that was quick. I forgot about that. I don't think we had. I mean, we got our 2 beers. I'm sure we had a couple more than that, but it's not like we had like 10 beers or anything. We just didn't have time.
Yeah, there was no time. We even stayed for the fireworks that ended so quickly.
Yeah, I didn't think we were going to do that, but that was awesome. The crowd all stayed. It was packed in the concourse. Anytime you're trying to go anywhere, it took a long time. It was just the opposite of what we thought it was going to be. So, yeah. But it was fun. Like I was going to have fun either way. But that was fun seeing a packed ballpark. White Sox lost 2-0. There were a couple A's fans there. But I think it was mostly Hispanic Heritage Night and that weird ass, cool ass giveaway, the La Pantera Angel Wings.
La Pantera.
I'm still confused by that, but I've never seen a full explanation of what that figurine is, but I need it.
I think it's on this box here, but I don't want to go off on a half.
No, we don't need to get into
it's like 7 paragraphs, so
there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, but I will say, for going to, that was only my 4th game of the season, which tells you how bad the White Sox were this year.
Wow.
Guy who averages 15 games a season, easy.
Easily.
Blinking an eye. But I gotta say, like you said, we would have had fun anyway, but it really was cool kind of being there and there was an actual crowd there. It kind of upped the ante, it like made it feel like, oh, we're at a real fucking baseball game tonight.
It was a raucous crowd too. I mean, there were bands out front. Like we were there an hour early and it was jam packed out in the parking lot. Bands playing everywhere.
We were talking to fans about wives telling guys to go get blowjobs from other people. It was a wild, wild night.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that was a weird group there. The divorcee, recently divorced guy, embarrassed by his buddies.
By his dad, we believe.
Is
Embarrassed
that
by
his
his
dad? Yeah.
yeah. We calculated it was his dad. He was like, "Oh, this guy just got divorced."
Somehow, like the subject of bidets came up out of
Yeah.
nowhere by that guy. Like it was classic White
Well,
Sox fodder
well,
conversation. It
I would
was
have to say, Smitty, if there was a theme to the entire weekend, it was bidet because
well,
bidet came back on Saturday.
ironically enough, I lost my bidet virginity that weekend at Callahan's place. He just got a
Mhm.
bidet. I had never used one in my life, and
Did you
it's a
order
game
one?
changer. That's
Did
all
you
I have to
order one?
say. So
Did you order one or no?
I will not be ordering one.
Okay.
I'll use classic means to keep my ass clean, but it was an experience. So I needed to go through that. So it was ironic that bidets had come up multiple times in that weekend from random strangers, even.
I gotta
But
say, if you had said to me when we picked you up, when Rob and I picked you up, if you had said, I just got a gut feeling we're talking a lot of bidets this weekend, I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? And
yeah,
and you would have won the over on that fucker because I would have bet the under.
yeah, there's a lot going on. What a
Uh,
weekend. Yeah, so that was one bright spot in a otherwise horrific White Sox season. So I was glad to be there to experience that with you. And our executive producer, Robin.
yes.
Thank you guys very much for your hospitality. Well, I think that means we can move on to not quite, maybe not equally sad, but another sad story in Chicago, this side on the north side of town with my Chicago Cubs. Um, 83 wins. I can't remember. I think you and I discussed this just a little bit ago. If it was 85, 80, 88 wins, maybe we thought they were going to get. I think both of us thought they would be just above average. We thought that would be enough to win the very average NL Central, but we were very wrong about that as the mediocre, I don't know what you call the Brewers. They just never go away. They're good no matter what's going on. But they won far more games than I thought they would after losing their manager to my Cubs, Craig Counsell, who I believe was a top 5 manager in the game and responsible for a lot of the Brewers' success over the last 8 years.
Wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting, like how you analyze the Brewers pre Craig Counsell or post Craig Counsell, because they seem about the same. The Cubs also seem about the same, whether they have David Ross at the helm or Craig Counsell. So it's a very frustrating time to be a Cubs fan for the last 5 years at least now, as we've chronicled ad nauseum. This team, you think I've been banging the drum that they are a major market behemoth that acts like a middle market team. Trying to find the small edges here and there, but they also spend quite a bit of money. They're bumping up against the salary cap, de facto salary cap, the luxury tax at close to $240 million. And yet they've assembled a very mediocre team, just above 500, which is exactly what we thought they did before this season started. That's what the team looked like to us, and that's exactly what they were. Maybe they miscalculated and thinking that was enough. Maybe they're just doing the bare minimum to think, what it takes just to get into the playoffs. And I think that's a failure of imagination and a failure of the president. And Jed Hoyer has to be on the hot seat after the season, because we have seen the same thing over and over again in
Yep.
different forms, that this team is just less than the sum of their parts over and over again. We've seen it. You and I could see it clearly what was going to happen going into the season. That's exactly what it did. The frustrating part about it is there's no clear way out of this being mired in mediocrity, to steal a phrase. What do they do? Do they suddenly go way over the salary cap and way over the luxury tax and go after Juan Soto? That's an easy solution. Where do they improve this roster? How do they go about that? Who do they trade somebody? Yeah, I've heard rumors of Nico Horner, like a cornerstone of their youth movement, who is not a bad player by any means, and thus he would have some trade value. But what do you get if you trade away Nico Horner? Like, where do the Cubs go from here? They're just, I feel like Jed Hoyer's kind of painted himself into a corner and is gotten nowhere but to the middle. And the Cubs fans are angry, but we're still going to games. You'd never know that this team is underachieving by the enthusiasm of the crowds at Wrigley. I don't know what has to happen from here. I don't have answers. I try to. This is a terrible, mediocre podcast, but I try to at least give some insight, at least what I think could be beneficial to, or the path towards success. But I don't know where the Cubs go from here. Either spend way more money than they have been, or completely gut everything, get rid of Jed Hoyer, and start over again. Get some new minds in there. Get a completely different direction, because what they've got going now is not working. It's clear that they're in a spiral. It is just not going to where a major market team with their own goddamn television network that makes money hand over fist through attendance, sponsorship, everything else, to be this mediocre. So I don't know. Maybe you've got answers from afar over there, but I'm perplexed and clearly fed up, as I think most Cubs fans are as well.
Well, I mean, number one, this is what I would say. You have the same record as you did with Ross. You spent more money on the manager really than you did on upgrading the talent on the field. You essentially brought the same team back and said, well, we brought in this great manager and he's going to push it over the edge. It was David Ross's fault, but it wasn't.
That was literally the narrative that we were supposed to buy in the offseason. And everything was going to be great because we got a new manager.
I mean, to have the same exact record both years with or without Ross is crazy. Finishing 9 games out last year and 10 games out this year. And then the Brewers won one more game this year. They won 92 last year, 93 this year. Craig Counsell is not a factor into a ball club's performance, apparently. That is one thing over a very small sample size so far we can say. But I think, again, like I think Jed Hoyer is the problem. He was terrible as the GM in San Diego. And he didn't he doesn't have the funds available to him that he does here. And his evaluation of maybe not so much the minor league talent, because the Cubs seem to have some pretty decent players coming up through the system, but
do they?
I don't know.
We keep hearing that, but they can't come up to the majors somehow, other than Pete Armstrong.
I don't know, but let's say for this conversation at the moment they do. It's his inability to close the big deal on the pro level that was always the thing that Theo was able to do. And maybe Ricketts does not, trust Jed the same way he trusted Theo.
Well, but with good reason. I mean, Theo's got the track record that Jed does not, just as you pointed out. So, we've been told over and over again how healthy this organization is, to your point about the farm system. But how is that helping the major league product, which is the whole point of a healthy farm system? It has not, other than like Pete Armstrong is the one player they've really developed so far. I don't know. It's almost like the Cubs need a radical solution, and I've just came up with one that I want to run by you, get your thoughts on.
Okay.
Craig Counsell actually has front office experience. He had that before he even became manager of the Brewers in 2015. And there's been a lot of talk about how kind of what on equal footing the relationship is between Counsell and Jed Hoyer. Like he's almost like a or like an assistant general manager or the general manager to the president. I'm wondering if maybe eventually Craig Counsell gets kicked up into the front office as eventually Jed's successor, and you bring in David Ross as your manager. I think that would be the perfect combination then. Like,
well, he won't be available.
New thoughts from outside the organization. Yeah. That's going to be fascinating. Of course, I'm joking. That would be ridiculous. It'd be really fun, actually. But That's going to be a big topic of conversation this offseason. Where does David Ross land? What does he even want to do? We brought it up briefly, but this past year at different times. But he definitely needed a year off, just sitting on the beach, probably laughing his face off. It's what's happened with the Cubs. Like you fucking scapegoated me and didn't go anywhere.
Yeah,
There's got to be
exactly.
some bitterness. I'm not sure if he's a bitter guy. I don't. Maybe he is. Maybe he has no reason to be bitter. Maybe he's super happy with his time and can't believe he was a major league manager for a time and is thankful for all of it. But I think I'd be kind of bitter. But I think he's going to be a hot commodity on the managerial market this offseason. So I'd be curious to see where that plays out. But just wanted to throw that radical theory out there. See if I could raise an eyebrow.
I mean, he'll be the White Sox manager, so it's going to be hard for him to be the Cubs manager. So it's all good.
That's interesting. What if he went to the South Side? That would be fascinating. That would definitely be a spite move. But why not? Fucking A.
83 wins looks great right now.
Yeah.
It's double, basically.
40 win improvement. That'd be pretty damn good.
Yeah, that'd be pretty damn good. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I never liked Jed Hoyer. I watched him carefully.
He's kind of benign. He's not an unlikable guy, but he's just sort of a corporate stooge almost.
Yeah. He's like your run of the mill, like on air broadcaster sort of situation. But anyway,
he fits the suit.
Best of luck,
so to speak. Yeah. Well, thank you. I think with that, I'm going to wrap up my Cubs conversation. If we want to move over to your San Francisco Giants, who have an equally interesting front office situation, maybe far more interesting.
Well, it is far more interesting. In breaking news, within the last 24 hours, right? Yeah, in the last 24 hours, the Giants have fired their president of baseball operations, Zaidi, and
Farhan Zaidi. You never have to pronounce it again.
Yeah.
Fortunately, you never have to say it again. Farhan Zaidi.
Zaidi. The Farhan's easy. It's the last name that's a sticker.
Yeah.
But they
not going to work here anymore.
They went ahead and brought in 37-year-old, recently retired. Yes, he's been part of their operations team. Buster Posey to run the whole fucking thing. Here you
Buster
go,
Posey.
Here you go, buddy. It's yours to destroy. Enjoy.
When did you learn that Buster Posey was part of your front office at all?
When he was tied to negotiating the Matt Chapman contract.
That's when I learned it as well. Apparently he's like a part owner. He's got like a minority stake in ownership as well.
Like a minority stake in ownership.
Holy fuck! The Giants set him up when he retired. They gave him part of the franchise. They put him in the front office, and now they made him their president of baseball operations. Wow, what a meteoric rise!
It's insane. It's insane. And they're like, oh, he negotiated the Matt Chapman deal. Let's talk about that for a fucking second.
I wanted to talk about this. I'm curious what you think about this.
Is it a negotiation? 6-year, $151 million deal for someone who's going to be fucking 37 years old when his contract comes to term. It's a
the other thing that really raised my eyebrow, and we've got the exact same opinion about this, which I wasn't sure. There's a no trade clause for someone who's going to be 37 years old. Like this is probably easily the most player friendly deal that's been signed in the last 3 years. Typically, like what's been happening is we've seen it specifically with Matt Chapman and also Blake Snell, who we'll get to. Every GM, every president of baseball ops across Major League Baseball was waiting out these free agents until deep into spring training to get them to sign short-term deals, a little bit friendly, and that they're 1-year player options for a total of 3 years. But you kind of knew they were going to, even if you got stuck with a terrible player, it was only 3 years. So they're kind of team friendly, but this is as player friendly as it gets, mainly because of the age that you pointed out. Like, you wouldn't be too worried about a no trade clause and a 6-year deal and that much money if he was 25. He's 31 years old. Like this seems like a very naive move by Buster Posey, and now being rewarded for it by giving him full reign now.
He got the deal done. Anyone could have gotten that deal done.
I think you and I could have figured that one out.
I could have gotten the deal done.
Take everything. Will you sign this?
Yeah. What do you want? I want $151 million guaranteed and a no trade clause. Done. That's basically the negotiations. You know what? I'm sure the negotiations with their former president, whose name I will not attempt to say,
Zaidi.
There
you go.
Went something like, yeah, how about we have a couple team options in there or something?
Yeah. Well, he was driving a hard bargain for the benefit of the team, of the franchise. And he got punished for it by that team.
Buster Posey comes in and saves the Chapman deal. There was nothing to save. He rolled over. Yeah. He said, can I give you a happy ending on this? I mean, Jesus. I mean, it's when I saw the deal, I went, what was, they say, because I think the headline was Posey ends up negotiating Chapman deal. There was no negotiation. What do you want?
I feel like he's almost been universally praised for this deal. Like, oh, he got it done. Like,
well, what did he get done though? He scratched the Giants. He got an albatross. This is. I mean, know what I'm going to equate this deal to? Because he's also a third baseman. This is the Mancata deal right now.
Yeah, it looks eerily similar.
You got 20. You got 2 years of $25 million that he's probably barely going to be on the fucking field for. Mm. Maybe he's going to be your.
Well, you and I talked about it. He was one of the hottest free agents in this past offseason that a lot of people in Detroit thought the Tigers should have signed. And I was against it because he had such a terrible last two thirds of the season last year. I thought he was done, but he had a fantastic year, and that's why on the surface, I think not looking deep into this, people could be happy about signing him, but signing him long term with a no trade clause is just,
I'm telling you,
it seems insane. So
here's the deal. I would have, and maybe this is the deal that was given to him. I probably would have gone 3 years, and I'm fine with the 3 years at 25 each. So like 75 million with 2 team options, not player options, team options.
I bet you that's what Zaidi offered. And Chapman wasn't interested at all. So I mean, Buster Posey clearly has no experience other than this one deal in a front office capacity. What does this mean going forward for your Giants? Like what are do we know anything about his organizational philosophies, how he wants to support the farm system? We've seen what his free agency policy is so far.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be spending a lot of money. That's what we're going to be doing.
Well, hey, that's fun.
I think Blake Snell will be back now after that deal.
Well, you definitely need to talk about Blake Snell, who opted not to pitch his final start and focus on his pending free agency. So kind of sounds like he's not interested in coming back to the Giants, unless, of course, they want to pay more than everybody else, which is quite possible with Buster Posey at the helm. I don't know. I thought that was a strange. Have you ever heard of a pitcher telling the team he's not going to pitch because he wants to focus on his free agency?
No, I mean, I don't think
seems really shitty, actually. It seems like big. I mean, it was a headline, but it seems like that should be pretty big fucking headlines. Like a player just refusing to play. It's an ugly. I think it's a really ugly look for Blake Snell.
Yeah, I mean, his exact quote was, "Just looking at it."
Can't hear you.
His exact quote was, "Just looking at it, I've only pitched as long as we're in it and had a shot. And against playoff teams," Snell said. "Not playing a playoff team, this game has no meaning." That was his, and then he wanted to protect himself going into the offseason.
He's not wrong.
I mean, go out and
doesn't sound like a good teammate.
You could go 3 fucking innings or something. Jesus.
Yeah.
Although there's another.
He's also saying he's more valuable than the guy that the the Giants will send out there to pitch in his place. So it's just an inherently selfish me first over team position. So
There,
I don't know. It's certainly not going to hurt him other than in our opinion, but
yeah. He did say if he had the chance, the thing that's interesting, if they were, I forget who they were playing, it was like maybe the Rockies or something. He said if he actually, if there was an implication where he could ruin someone's playoff chances, then he would have pitched.
I
Which
like
I
that.
love. That part I love. That
Yeah,
part
spite start.
yeah, I love it. I fucking love it. That's why he won me back on that quote.
Yeah.
He also said that I feel like players say this shit all the time, but he's like, he did comment to NBC Sports, Bay Area sports station, that he would like to return to the Giants, but I think that's I don't know how many
Yeah.
times I've heard that before. So
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to return. Well, he'd be stupid not to say that. So
yeah, but
he's basically telling them he doesn't want to come back there by his actions. So I don't know. That was surprising to see how that season ended, specifically with front office and free agency decisions for your Giants, if not on the field. But
I mean it's
wow.
I mean the Giants as a whole for me turned into a huge disappointment. I thought they made enough moves to make the playoffs, and they were kind of sitting there. It was wild card was ripe for the taking coming out of the All-Star break. They had the
Yeah.
easiest schedule out of all those teams in the second half, and
It
they
didn't
could not
happen.
fucking get it done. I mean, I also God bless the Padres. I mean, they went on an epic tear, as you mentioned earlier, a
Yeah.
little bit better than even the Giants. So, I mean, than the Tigers. So, yeah, but this just a disappointment. Especially like Snell and Robbie Ray had some great fucking outings in that whole post All-Star break,
Yeah.
and they could
Yeah,
not.
we thought you pointed out how good their rotation should be in the second half of the season, and it
Yeah,
kind of came to fruition, but it was not nearly
but
enough.
they had bullpen issues too. Just and they had games like the Cubs where they couldn't fucking score any runs. So all right,
Well,
I'm
as much of
done.
a circus as the end of the Giant season one was, it was nothing compared to the end of an era and the end of the Oakland A's. The fucking A's played their last game in the Oakland Coliseum. It's probably one point it's called O.co. I'm not even sure. Overstock.com, shithole, whatever its last final name was. But the A's played their last game there on Thursday to an absolutely packed, I think it was 47,000 crowd. Uh, Somber celebration, but a raucous atmosphere at the same time. Just strange juxtaposition of emotions. Basically, a big middle finger to John Fisher, saying, we've been here all along. You have just shit on us consistently so that we wouldn't come out." And they showed that they would come out, and he majorly fucked up. And that's, again, this is like shooting fish in the barrel, but that's why he's going to be our asshole of the week. John Fisher, much like your White Sox owner Jerry Reinsdorf, wrote a letter to the fans. Honestly, from afar, I think Reinsdorf's letter is far more sincere, believe it or not, as John Fisher threw out just a bunch of cliches, lies,
He threw out a lot of lies in his letter.
a lot of lies, fake apologies, even though he said he genuinely apologizes. He said they tried,
Oh God,
which is horseshit.
total
Uh,
horseshit.
he he tried to list all the different projects that they tried to put together, which they did in bad faith,
I
consistently.
mean, we
That
all
has
knew it.
led, yes, it's such a terrible, just an awful moment for any city to lose a franchise, but Oakland to have now lost all of their professional franchises. The Warriors moved to the West Bay into San Francisco. The Raiders moved to Las Vegas, and now, of course, the A's are, well, maybe moving to Vegas, and that's again, we've talked about this, but it's not a done deal yet. They do not have a full stadium proposal done yet for Las Vegas, even though they say they are moving there in 4 years. Right now, they are moving to Sacramento, We've talked about this, where they're moving into a AAA stadium that holds 15,000 people. The other part of what makes John Fisher and the A's assholes is they've said they will not be using the name Sacramento anywhere in their branding.
Yes.
For the next 3 years, they will be called the A's or the Athletics. There will be no city associated with it. So they're not really sounding like they're not really into their new bedfellows, their new girlfriend, boyfriend, Sacramento. If they're not going to take your name. They've also said they're trying to negotiate where if they make the playoffs, which is hilarious to think that the A's might make the playoffs in the next 3 years. The idea that they could play in a different facility for those playoff games, because of course they would want a much larger gate than the 15,000 seat capacity would offer them in Sacramento. So I don't know where they think they're going to play these fanciful playoff games, potentially in San Francisco, maybe at Oracle Park, which would be hilarious to be a fly on the wall for those negotiations. I'm sure the Giants have no interest in helping the A's in any way, or anyone in the Bay Area would have any interest in helping them. I don't know where they would be playing these games, but it's just hilarious. They'd be essentially they're begging to play playoff games that will never happen at a neutral site, which is just shows what a shambles this whole situation is. You feel terrible for A's fans, fans of Oakland. I don't know. I mean, kind of got to worry. I see similar things, and I hate to say this to you as a lifelong White Sox fan, but you can see a similar path with the White Sox, and you've got time to fix this. I don't know how the fans fix this or how you avoid this path, but feel like you're on similar channels, and I can't imagine what that would feel like if the Tigers left Detroit. Like how bitter or what I would do next, or if I would even be into baseball anymore. Like I don't know what that would feel like, but I'm worried. I'm worried that could happen to the White Sox. So I think White Sox fans should be looking at what's going on in Oakland right now and as a cautionary tale. And I don't know. I mean, obviously Vegas is off the board, but you've heard the threats from Reinsdorf. If he sells the team, or if he dies and his kids sell it, a new owner doesn't have necessarily any ties to the city of Chicago, and he's openly flirted with Nashville and other places. So I don't know. It just brings up dark images in my mind watching the A's, who have been there for 60 some years, my whole life, your whole life. Even though they've been in Kansas City and Philadelphia before that, to now be onto a fourth city, it can happen anywhere, and it makes me nauseous. The fans there showed up. They gave their middle fingers to Fisher. I salute them. I really, in a way, I believe there's a glimmer of hope that I'll throw out there, is that John Fisher is so incompetent, so arrogant, that he's going to completely fuck up this Las Vegas deal, and they'll have nowhere to go but back to Oakland, or to sell the team, in which there are plenty of interested parties in the city of Oakland that would buy it from him and keep them there in some capacity, and hopefully be a little, just slightly more competent to actually negotiate a stadium deal. So there's a glimmer of hope out there, but it's just a fucking awful situation. And this is all because of one fucking person. That is our asshole of the week, potentially asshole of the year, which we'll get to in the off season, or maybe asshole of the century. But it's going to get a good running for his money with our reigning asshole of the year, Jerry Reinsdorf. But John Fisher, you are a fucking asshole.
All right. I think that brings us to your favorite segment.
Yeah, let's move on to happier things as I move on to my favorite segment, aesthetics.
Ugh.
Lots of uniform news
Thought
here.
we were done, but okay.
Across baseball. Never. We are never done. You should be happy about this. This is well, I've got good news, bad news, and good news.
Oh,
so do you want the good news or the bad news or the good news first?
Well, I thought I like your order. Let's start off with the first good news.
Well, I don't remember what my order was, but okay.
You said good news, bad news, good news. So let's start off. Let's bookend with good news, bad news in the middle.
I don't know if you meant specifically. One piece of good news is that
Yes.
Nike and Fanatics have announced that they will be reverting back to the old uniforms we have known and loved all of our lives, gone away from the shitbags they produced this past season, this current season. The flimsy materials are gone. The tiny names on the back are gone. The see-through pants are gone.
Ah,
Uh,
boo.
the rip-away pants are gone. Basically, everything's reverting exactly to what we've had all along. So they announced that, I believe, yesterday. So this nightmare is over. Honestly, after the first couple months, I kind of didn't notice the uniforms anymore until every so often you'll see the nameplates on the back with
Yeah,
just
that's where
some
I'd
teams have
always
just
noticed it.
tiny lettering. It looks like giveaway jerseys. Just nothing that looks like the the highest league of baseball on the planet. It just looks so chintzy. So those are going away, fortunately.
Well,
So
there's good news, more good
thank
news
you.
for that.
What's that?
Well, it means if you're willing to buy one of those jerseys, I'm sure in this upcoming off
Mm,
season going into next year, if you've got your favorite player, like say a Skubal jersey that's
yeah.
of the old material, that will be
Well,
available for a highly discounted price, I'm sure.
and if the Tiger, I mean, this historic Tiger season, though, that this one-off year with these bizarre jerseys, it might be a collector's item, and
That's right.
maybe in 20 years, the cool kids will be wearing them. Yeah, since they'd be so rare. Yeah, that's a great point. Maybe I should load up on these shitty
I
Fanatics uniforms.
I may be loading up. I may be loading
Well,
up. I
you are
may.
wearing I kind of don't trust your judgment on
What do you
fashion,
mean?
baseball fashion, as you are wearing a sleeveless White Sox basketball jersey right
That's
now.
right.
If you're not
121.
if you're not watching on YouTube right now,
Go
yeah,
watch
um,
if you're not.
it's quite a sight. Your pasty shoulders over there
Well, it's
are
great. You can
blinding me,
see
but
the tan. You can see the tan line. It's like I'm wearing
yeah,
two shirts, or just I have arm sleeves on up to my mid bicep.
it's quite a statement you're doing over there. So yeah, I'll be taking your fashion advice with a grain of salt. But
Hey, in
all right,
post,
then
in well, hold on, real quick question. In post, can you just make
go
my
ahead.
arms tan all the way up? Can you just tan the
I
rest?
am I'm a veteran graphic designer, but I'm not that talented.
Come
I'll have to say
on,
that where
use some
I could
effects
pull
in
that
post
off, but
production, fucker. Come on, I should have green screened
just
my arms.
JPEG it. Yeah, green screen it.
All right.
Well, I got to transition to bad news here before we get to the other good news. Bad news is in their infinite wisdom and profit seeking interests, Major League Baseball has signed a sponsorship deal with a German clothing company named Strauss. Strauss to put their logo on every batting helmet this postseason. And the first examples were this afternoon with my Tigers versus the Astros. We got to see this enormous Strauss logo plastered on the side of every batting helmet. Uh, it's just a block. It's basically Futura font Strauss with like a weird ostrich logo.
Sounds great.
It's enormous on the side of every helmet. But the good news, I'll find a silver lining in this. It's gross. It's weird. Like I've never heard of this company. I guess that maybe is the point. Like if they need to advertise to get people to know who they are, I guess that's effective because now I'm talking about them on our stupid podcast. But it's so gross. It's just ugly. It's just a bad, crass commercialism, money grab. If it was Nike, I maybe could understand a swoosh on the side of the helmet, or I don't know, some partner you've heard of, MasterCard. It's just bizarre. I have no idea the terms of the deal. I don't think those have been disclosed. Fortunately, I can say it did not affect my viewing of today's playoff game. I barely noticed it. I actually forgot about it at one point. Um, I'll be curious to get your thoughts on it. As you weren't able to watch, I don't think you've seen any of the games yet
No,
today,
have
but
not.
you'll see it, but it's not quite as bad as I've made it sound, which is it's bad, but it doesn't distract from the viewing, which is nice. But just bizarre and just another gross decision by Rob Manfred in Major League Baseball. But I'll end this aesthetic segment with more good news, as Major League Baseball announced this morning, I think, maybe it was yesterday, and they are capitulating to a discussion you and I had on a previous aesthetics earlier this season, as they will be reverting back to home and road team uniforms in the All-Star game. Back to the way it always was. The player from their team will be wearing their own uniform. They won't be wearing the generic city-themed uniform of wherever the All-Star game happens to be at that year. Far more aesthetically pleasing. It's how All-Star games should have always looked. It's been weird that they ever changed that. It's been hard to identify players. They come in and out of the game. You don't know who's who necessarily because they all have the exact same uniform that's unrecognizable. So a big smart move just to go back to the way things were once again by Major League Baseball. You figured out you didn't need to do any of this shit and you fucked it all up. Just go back. They're going back to their prospective team uniforms throughout the All-Star game. So I don't know if you cared as much about that as I did, but I love it. It helps me identify the players, but I think it looks so cool when all the American League wears their home uniforms, all the National League wears their road uniforms, or vice versa. I think it's so cool, and really identifying the players is the biggest benefit. So bravo to Major League Baseball. You finally came back to your senses. But you have any thoughts about any of that? Or you just not give a shit like usual for this segment?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of indifferent about it. I always is kind of annoyed.
Kinda.
Yeah. Well, does that mean for the home run derby, they're going to go back to wearing like an American League and National League jersey?
Yeah, they'll still have those uniforms for that and to wear at different events throughout the weekend or that week. But the regular uniforms will be used during the game.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I didn't mind having an all-star uniform that's actually worn in the game, but I get
I
it.
hated it.
I get it. Like if, I guess you're having trouble figuring out who's who.
Come on.
I don't
All
really
right.
care.
Okay, let's move on then. You've shit on this long enough. So I think we should move on to our final segment of the evening, and the most important to you and me and the least important to anyone else on the goddamn planet, our fantasy minute.
This is everybody's favorite segment this season, especially mine tonight.
Well, I've got to give you congratulations to you. You have won the American League A-Holes championship.
That's
Your
right,
first championship
motherfuckers.
in how many? You've won 3 now? How many in 20 years?
Yeah.
Third, first in like 10, 15 years?
Yeah,
I don't remember when you won your second one.
It's been a while.
Well, you and I had an epic battle, which we spoke about from time to time on this very podcast. We were back and forth. In fact, we were pretty much tied or within 2 points of each other for the last 2 months. But we were tied with basically an hour left in the season. I don't know if you were paying as close attention as I was.
I did not notice that I saw myself have a half-point lead. I didn't realize we were tied again.
I actually did take a screenshot. I didn't bother sending it to you, but I've got the screenshot where we were tied at 4:30 my time on Sunday, with most of the games being in the 6th inning. You eventually did prevail 59.5 to my 59 points.
That's right.
That half point came because you and I tied in RBI, which is amazing to go through 6 months of a season and come up with the exact same number of RBI. I think we had like 961 apiece, which means though, if I had one more RBI than what I had 3 RBIs on Sunday, you had 2. That's how I tied you in that category. If I got a 4th RBI, I would have won the league. The league came down to 1 RBI. Much to my chagrin, what also happened on Sunday, and I'm sure you noticed this, but I need to bring this up, is the Cleveland versus who was Cleveland playing?
That's right. The game was
whoever they were playing
was canceled.
The game it was delayed and then canceled. Oh, it was Houston. Because it had no implications on playoff seedings, where I had both Josh Naylor and one other Guardian going that did not play. And if either one of those had been able to play, they may have gotten that one RBI I needed to change this conversation over completely. But I don't know. I'm still congratulating you. This is an incredible season. This is a blast. The coolest thing is our league only pays out first and second place, so we both got paid.
Yeah.
You got paid significantly more. So congratulations to you. You've got your third championship. It was almost a third championship, two of which could have been shared with myself. Just bizarre that we were so close to coming to another tie and a shared championship. 20 years later, 20 years after our inaugural season.
Yeah.
You have a victory speech prepared?
No, it was
you want to thank anyone? Thank the little people?
I just want to say that you and I had a very similar strategy down the stretch, except you took to that strategy the very last day of the season, and I took to that strategy the last month of the season.
Loading up on starting pitchers?
Well, I noticed something. When you have good pitchers and then suddenly they're going to be in the playoff hunt, or they're in the playoff hunt, or they're pretty close to getting guaranteed playoff spot, they stop getting quality starts. And part of my lead a lot of the year was the fact that I was like right there at the top of quality starts. In fact, you and I.
Yeah, we should explain. We don't do wins. We do quality starts, because that's something actually the pitcher can affect. Wins are such bullshit because there's so many other factors. So we got rid of wins a long time ago.
So I was going back and forth. I was leading quality starts. You'd be leading quality starts. I think maybe it was Kanopik was the other person in play, or Vitt with quality starts. And it was a switch. Well, the minute we got to September, all my pitchers, including Tarik Skubal a lot, starting to get pulled after the fifth fucking inning. Yeah. And they were in cruise control. In fact, my favorite pitcher was Raggins for KC, who they kept taking out after 5 2/3. 5
that's the worst.
5 2/3 every fucking time. So what I started to do is I had one slot that was kind of like a mediocre pitcher. So I would start doing matchups. And part of the reasons I even hung into the quality starts is I started to just pick pitchers who were playing the White Sox, who were available, even if they were on bad teams.
I didn't employ that strategy, but that's shrewd.
And I want to say I probably got about every Oakland starter was available just about. I probably got 6 quality starts in September out of Oakland starters because of their games against the White Sox.
Wow.
Some Angels pitchers I got quality starts out of because of that. But where it got real hairy was like that last week and a half or so. Every guy I picked up would only go 5 fucking innings, even though I always picked up a guy who was on a team who was not going to be in the playoffs, because of the idea that they would let him pitch because there's nothing on the line, and they wouldn't. And that's when you picked up a bunch of the guys I had picked up over that time frame. And I was like, best of luck to you on getting the point out of quality starts, because you're probably going to be lucky to get 1 or 2. And you got 2 out of
2
out of 7 guys.
It worked. Well, that's the thing. It actually worked. I got the 2 points. That's what I needed. I got the 2 quality starts, and I got the tie in the lead of that category. What I didn't get was the 1 RBI. I only got 3 fucking RBI in the last day instead of 4. So the strategy worked. It's just the fucking rain out and the lack of offensive production is what killed me. And I'm not sure I would change, like, in hindsight, there's not much I could have done about any of that on the last day. If I wasn't gonna dump my whole team and think that I could get new offensive players that would help more. So no, what it proves is you just had a better team this year. So by 1 RBI, but it's true. So congratulations. I think you deserve what was the payout? $500, $500 and $200 for second place. So congratulations to us, I guess.
We both, to make things even more stressful, we both only had 7 guys start offensively that day too. So it was totally coming down to the wire, because I was like, "Fuck!" If
Soto got sat.
Oh my god! I was like, if he has an 8th starter, I'm fucked. Not that it meant they were going to even score any statistic that meant anything to beat me, but I was just all freaking out So I'm over there counting your offensive players who were starting. I'm like, okay, good. We both have 7.
I'm glad to know that you were freaking out. That makes me feel even better about the whole situation.
Well, I got really
I'm gonna
calm 2 days before
as
because
cocky as you were via text message
well, I
over
mean,
the
you
weekend.
got to put up a
I'm
good
glad to
fucking
know that
front.
you were not. Yeah, I'm glad to know that was not the truth and that I had you shaking in your boots.
Well, I got really cocky and chose not to send you anything because the day before the final day, I think, or no, 2 days before the final day, I jumped to a 2-point lead. It was 60-58.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I was like, oh yeah, motherfucker. Then I'm looking, I'm like,
I made my.
no, I have a 1 RBI lead. I had a 1 RBI lead, and there was one other
You
category
even lost that and still won.
and still won. That's right, because I could not be
Well,
stopped.
we discussed at length the tiebreaker issue we had because it looked like for a long time we were going to be tied, and then we would be tied for our first tiebreaker, which was who was ahead of the other in more categories of our 10, and it looked like we were going to be 5-5, which would be ridiculous, and we couldn't figure out a second tiebreaker that would be equitable and make sense. But I had an idea. What if going forward, the second tiebreaker, which is so unlikely that we'd ever get to, but what if it was something less arbitrary and something we actually control with our strategy throughout the season? What if it's whoever has the least number of transactions? Because you maximized your 50 allotted 50 moves per season. I think I ended up at like around 36. That's how I was able to make all those pitching moves on the last day. Not that that's there's nothing wrong with any of it, but I was just thinking that might lead to more strategy. Like if you were considering like conserving your number of transactions just in case we ever had to get to the final second tiebreaker. I just thought it might be an interesting way because or just another way to add a little more strategy into it rather than some randomness. We pick whatever random way to have a second tiebreaker. I don't know. It's something to bring up. Something we certainly couldn't have done on the fly during this season because that's totally unfair. It'd be going forward, but something to throw out there.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I think that's a good idea. Like, I'm in
another reason to think about making a transaction at least. Something you control, actually.
Yeah, I mean, in Sean's football league, we get charged $2 per transaction after you draft your roster. So
really, I guess I've heard of that. Yeah.
So that makes you
think
that
goes to the party fund, or how does he allocate those funds?
We pay out 1 through 3 and then top 5 points because they almost never they never coincide. There's always a team who seems to play the other team, every team.
Yeah, that's what's stupid about fantasy football.
Yeah.
That's a good way to mitigate that injustice. I like that, but this is a baseball podcast, so.
No, but I'm just saying, like,
fantasy football sucks.
I'm just like drawing that parallel, like it does. It makes you think about, like, if I'm looking at my team and I'm like, this transaction's not going to be one that's going to get me to the playoffs. Do I want to spend any more money? So like I'm
thinking you probably wouldn't think about it for baseball. You probably wouldn't think about the number of transactions you're making until the last couple of weeks, and that might have changed your strategy right at the very end or changed mine right at the very end. Just thinking, oh shit, I got to do this, but I can't risk losing the second tiebreaker just because I made these moves. I don't know.
I like it.
I'm going to throw that out there to the league, which I think is contracting by 1. Sam, if you're out there, I'm kicking you out of the league. I've had to ask you for your participation on multiple occasions. And now I've had to ask you to pay me multiple times. He says he's going to give me the money, but I have not received the monies yet. I'm calling you out on this platform. Sam, you're out, but you still got to pay.
Get your shit together.
Sorry,
Sam.
dude. Come on. I think, Sam, you're a good guy, but you clearly don't care enough about fantasy baseball. So got to kick you to the curb. Well, with that draconian note, sorry, Sam. On that note, let us end this final episode of the regular season. I guess it's the first episode of the postseason.
Yeah.
Of Major League A-holes. Well, I'm certainly going to have shit to talk about with the Tigers. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of news going forward in the offseason with your White Sox and Giants.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, turbulent times of transition.
I did
So
just
yeah,
get a letter from Buster Posey, so we'll see what that says. But
interesting. Yeah, we'll get that on the next episode. So with that, I think we can wrap up this episode 152. In the meantime, you can catch us on social media at Major League A-Holes, especially on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Major League A-Holes. You can find us on the web at majorleagueaholes.com and our merchandise at aesthetics.shop. And I think with that, we can declare this podcast is over. Peace.
peace.
Word Hole Media.